Hi guys, Pastor Bob here, and we are doing our first confirmation video today, and we're going to be talking about the first article of the Apostles' Creed. The Creed is that thing we say every Sunday where we announce what we believe to one another. And today we're going to look at the part of the Creed where we say, I believe in God the Father Almighty. But before we get into that, I want you to think a little bit today about one question. Where do you come from? Where do you come from? This is a very important question that's going to help shape your identity. So, for example, I come from the family of the Hillers, so I am a Hiller. I come from Colorado, and so that shapes some of the things about my life. For example, I'm a Broncos fan because I'm from Colorado. I am also a pastor's kid, which means I'm able to get away with a lot of stuff in church and nobody gets mad at me. You see, there's a lot of things about your identity that come from the idea of where do I come from? And this is something we need to think about as we think about God, our Creator, today, because that helps us understand who we are because of where we come from. So, where do you come from? First, we want to recognize that all of us come from God. God is our Creator. He made us. He designed us. He is the Creator of heaven and earth. He made everything that exists. All that is or was or ever will be comes from God. And that includes you. You are a person who was created by God. You were designed to be a certain way, to live a certain way, to act a certain way, to be who you are. God designed you to be that way. One way we could say this is you are a creature of the Creator, not a gross, strange monster creature, but you are one who has been created by God. Now, to understand what it means to be created by God, we need to understand who God is. Who is this God who has made us, and what do we know about Him? And this is where we get into the article of the Creed today. We believe that our God is our Father who is almighty and He has created everything. Now, we need to ask, before we even get into that a little bit, we need to ask, what is a God? What does it mean to have a God? Well, a God is one who creates, and a God is that which we trust with all of our hearts. So there's some things that we treat as gods, there's some things we trust like they're God, but they're not really gods because they didn't create us. There is one true God who has created us, and He is one who we can trust with all of our lives. So let's talk a little bit about that God today. First, we're going to look at this idea that our God, as we just mentioned, is our Creator. He is the Almighty Creator. That means, as I mentioned already, that He made everything that exists. He made heaven and earth. He made the sky and the sea. He creates everything. Further, not only does He make it, we also believe our God sustains it. He created it, and by His hand, everything continues on the way it should go. So He made the world, and He made everything in the world, and He made it out of nothing. God spoke it into existence, and we actually have an account of this in the scriptures in the book of Genesis. God tells us how He made things. That thousands upon thousands of years ago, God spoke into the nothing and He created something. God created in 6 days, we believe. And the order goes like this. On day 1, He made light and dark. He made day and He made night. On day 2, then He created the sky and He created the sea. On day 3, He created the land and He separated the land from the sea. So this is how God set things up. And now, on the next 3 days, He's going to fill those things up. He's going to order those things and design those things and contain those things, we might say. So on day 4, He creates something to contain and order the light and the dark. He creates the sun, and He creates the moon, and He creates the stars, and He creates these things to order times and seasons. Then, on day 5, He creates birds that we find in the air, and fish, which we find in the sea. All of the sea creatures God created on those days. Then on day 6, He put stuff on the land. He created animals. Now on day 3, I should have mentioned, He created trees, and He created vegetation, and He created all this wonderful stuff. And now on day 6, He creates animals to live in the trees. He creates all the land creatures at that time, I should say. And He created people. And His creation of people was very important. God created people in a very particular way. He reached His hands down into the dirt, as the scriptures tell us, and He designed Adam. And from Adam, He also designed Eve, and He created one male and the other female. And God told them to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and to subdue it. And their job, their responsibility in this creation was to bear the image of God. By that we mean at least that they were to take care of everything that God had made. They'd been given authority over the creation. So God created humanity, He created people with this purpose. Now here's what I want you to notice in all of this. That in those 6 days, God created everything according to a design. There was purpose and there was a meaning behind it. And that is true for humanity as well. We have meaning, we have purpose, we have design. God created us to do stuff, to be certain ways. So for example, He created to be a boy or to be a girl. He created you to be a part of a family. He created your body and everything about your body, your eyes and your ears and your nose and your hair and your mouth and your tongue and your toes. And He created all these things to do things. He created your tongue to taste and your eyes to see and your ears to hear and your feet to walk. And these are the ways God has designed you to work. Now, if you try and use your ear to drink, that's going to go wrong. That's a misuse of the design. If you try and use your feet to smell, that's not going to work. Your toes can't smell. Now, your toes might smell, but you know that means something different. Now, here's something else I want you to think about. Not only has He created our bodies to work a certain way, not only has He created us to work a certain way, He's created this world to work a certain way. The way we treat each other is designed according to a purpose. It's designed according to what we call the law. This is what the 10 Commandments lay out for us. They tell us how we are supposed to live in this world. And over the next number of weeks, we're actually going to look at those 10 Commandments to see how life is supposed to go in this world. But a quick run over of those things is we are created to trust God, to love Him above all things, and to love our neighbors as ourselves, to take care of the creation. Now, when we disobey these laws, things go wrong. When we break the commandments, it's like we're trying to drink with our ears. Things go wrong in this world. We call that sin. We call it sin when we break the commandments. So though the commandments show us what a perfect world would look like, we recognize the world is not perfect. Why? Because we break the commandments, because of our sinfulness. God created Adam and Eve to trust Him perfectly and to love the creation perfectly, and instead they tried to become their own gods. They tried to do things against God's will, according to their own ways and according to the will of Satan. This is what gets them into trouble. We call this problem sin. Now, we will learn over the next number of weeks how God redeems us from our sin and He forgives us for our sin, but that's going to be much later. But the good news I can tell you right now is this, is that though you have sinned and I have sinned, God has done something about that sin. He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross, to pay for those sins so that we would be forgiven. Now, God has done this to forgive us and to save us and to bring us back to Him for all of eternity, because not only is God our Creator, but He's also our Father. And that's the second thing we say in the Creed, that we believe in God, the Almighty Creator, but really we believe in God the Father, who is our Almighty Creator. What it means for God to be our Father is this, is that we come from Him, that He has created us, but also that He has created us by grace. He's not some ambivalent dictator up in the sky. He's not someone who ignores us throughout our lives. He's a Father who's involved with our lives, and He loves us very much. He has created us not because He had to, but because He wanted to. He created us out of love, out of divine mercy, without any worthiness inside of us. God has decided to make us, and to make us so that He could love us. In other words, you don't necessarily deserve your existence. You don't necessarily deserve to be alive, but God chose to make you because He wanted to love you. He wanted to have you as His own. He created you to love you, to provide for you, and this is what He does in the creation. He gives you food, and He gives you water, and He gives you nourishment and clothes and family and school and church. He gives you all these things as a gift to provide for you the things you need for life, and He protects you. He protects you from sin and death and the devil through His Son, Jesus Christ. He is a good Father who forgives you for all of your sins and brings you into a loving relationship with Him. So this is what it means for us to have this God, that we have a God who is our Father who loves us and our Almighty Creator who has made us. So what does that mean for you and I? This gets back to the first question. Where do I come from? You come from a God who loves you. You come from a God who created you to live in a certain way. So we can say it this way, which sounds kind of lame. You are the creature of a creator. Or we can say it a little more wonderfully. You are a child of God, created by Him, to be loved by Him, and to serve and love His creation. He designed you with purpose in mind. He designed you and created you to help take care of people around you, and He created you to trust Him to provide for you. Now, what that actually looks like is, again, what we're going to talk about over the next number of weeks as we go through the 10 Commandments. But know this, you are a created, beloved child of God, and He has a great purpose for you in this world. All right, guys, that's all for today. We'll talk to you a little bit more over the next number of weeks. Thanks.